But what would actually have to happen for U.S. military forces to get involved in Mexico? Today, we're breaking this down in a serious, fact-based way. Who El Mencho was. What recent developments suggest. What legal and military options exist. What weapons and capabilities could be involved, and most importantly, what this would realistically mean for Mexico, the U.S., and civilians on both sides of the border. This is not about glorifying conflict. This is about understanding consequences. El Mencho, born Nemesio Oseguera Cervantes, led the Jalisco New Generation Cartel, widely considered one of the most powerful criminal organizations in Mexico. The cartel built its power through methamphetamine production and trafficking, cocaine distribution networks into the United States, armed territorial control in parts of western Mexico, sophisticated money laundering operations. CJNG became known for military-style displays of force, armored vehicles, coordinated convoys, and heavy weapons, which blurred the line between organized crime and insurgency in the public imagination. Recent rumors about El Mencho's death, whether from internal betrayal, illness, or conflict, remain unconfirmed by official Mexican sources. But even speculation about leadership changes can destabilize cartel structures and trigger violent power struggles. And that's where concerns about escalation begin. Here's the first critical point. Cartels are not nation-states. Under international law, war typically occurs between recognized sovereign states. The United States cannot formally declare war on a criminal organization in another sovereign country without major legal consequences. For U.S. military involvement inside Mexico, one of these would have to happen. 1. Mexican government invitation. Mexico could formally request military assistance. This would transform any operation into a cooperative security mission. 2. Self-defense justification. If cartels conducted large-scale attacks directly against U.S. military targets or civilians on U.S. soil, the U.S. could argue self-defense under Article 51 of the UN Charter. 3. Congressional authorization. Congress could pass specific authorization for cross-border operations, though this would be politically controversial. Right now, none of these conditions exist. So when people say, the U.S. is going to war with Mexico, that's not legally accurate. If the U.S. increased military involvement, it would likely focus on disruption, not invasion. Here's what that realistically means. Intelligence and surveillance. The U.S. military has extensive surveillance capabilities, including high-altitude reconnaissance aircraft, satellite imaging systems, unmanned aerial systems, drones, signals, intelligence monitoring. These tools track trafficking routes, financial networks, and communication channels. The goal would not be territorial conquest, but dismantling operational infrastructure. Cyber operations. Modern cartels rely heavily on encrypted communications, financial networks, and digital coordination. Cyber units could disrupt communication platforms, freeze digital financial transactions, track cryptocurrency laundering, intercept coordination between cells. This kind of pressure weakens organizational cohesion without large-scale combat. Special operations advisory roles. In past international partnerships, U.S. Special Operations Forces have trained and advised foreign military units in counter-narcotics and counter-terrorism operations. This does not mean direct firefights across Mexico. It means tactical training, intelligence fusion centers, precision planning, support, equipment modernization assistance, maritime and air interdiction. The U.S. Navy and Coast Guard could expand interdiction efforts in the Gulf of Mexico, the Pacific Coast, Caribbean trafficking corridors. Stopping shipments before they reach land reduces cartel revenue streams. This is where it's important to stay realistic. If military assets were involved, they would emphasize surveillance platforms, precision tools, defensive capabilities, interdiction systems, not large-scale bombing campaigns. Examples of systems that could be involved in cooperative missions: ISR, aircraft, intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance, unmanned aerial systems for monitoring naval patrol vessels, electronic warfare systems for communication disruption, secure tactical communication systems. These systems are designed for targeted disruption, not destruction of cities or broad military assault. This is the most important section. Even limited U.S. involvement could trigger increased violence during cartel power struggles, civilian displacement in contested areas, economic instability in affected regions, political backlash against perceived foreign intervention. Mexico's government is highly sensitive to sovereignty concerns. Historically, foreign military presence has been politically controversial. Any U.S. action without coordination could damage diplomatic relations and economic cooperation, including trade agreements that support millions of jobs on both sides of the border. When criminal groups are pressured, they sometimes fragment. That can lead to smaller, less predictable splinter groups. Increased localized violence, short-term spikes in homicide rates, retaliatory attacks. History shows that removing a cartel leader doesn't automatically eliminate the organization. It can sometimes create temporary instability before new leadership emerges. The debate isn't happening in a vacuum. It's fueled by the opioid crisis in the United States, rising fentanyl trafficking concerns, border security politics, public frustration over drug-related deaths. For some policymakers, labeling cartels as terrorist organizations opens the door to broader counterterrorism authorities. But even that step would not automatically authorize invasion-level military action. So, could the United States go to war with Mexican cartels? In a traditional sense, no. Could military pressure increase through surveillance, interdiction, and advisory roles? Yes, but likely only with Mexican cooperation. Any serious escalation would carry enormous diplomatic, economic, and humanitarian consequences. This isn't a movie scenario. It's a complex geopolitical issue involving law, sovereignty, and the safety of millions of civilians. You found this breakdown helpful? Subscribe for more serious discussions on global security, military policy, and international affairs. Comment below. What do you think is the most effective strategy to combat cartel influence? Military pressure, economic reform, or something else? Stay informed. Stay analytical, and thanks for watching.